Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Q&A with the Cape Cod Technology Council. I'm CEO Bert Jackson. Welcome you all here this Friday. And this month is EarthTech Month. We're celebrating Earth Day by having a technology event every Friday from during the 5 Fridays of this month. Last week we had Vineyard Wind speaking with us, telling us about what's up with that project. There's a lot of exciting things happening, and that video is available on our YouTube channel, so you can go and take a look at that if you're interested. And next week this video will be available on our YouTube channel if all goes well, as they say at NASA. And so next week we've got River Strong from UMass Amherst talking about agri-solar, putting solar panels on farms and how that system can work together. It's pretty interesting. The following week, we've got the Wolf brothers, Dan and Jim Wolf, talking about the electrification of Cape Air. So they've done a lot of work electrifying their facilities, but now they're actually looking at electric airplanes, which is really cool. It's basically a flying battery. Can't wait to see what that's about. And then at the end of the month, to finish off the month, on the last Friday of the month, we've got Greentown Labs coming, and they're a business incubator off Cape. They help startups who are working with green technologies. So a lot of exciting things happening up. All the coffee Q&As are free, and they're at a civil hour of 10 a.m. So look forward to having you there. Our first Friday in May is pretty exciting. We have somebody from a company called Xterra. They are a company that helps educate people for the virtual reality industry. So this is an up-and-coming industry as computer processing power gets stronger, and so we're going to have someone talking about that. It's very exciting. You can find all of these events at our website at cctechcouncil.org. Make sure you sign up for your newsletter so you don't miss anything. And first of all, I would like to thank Cape and Plymouth Business, who is our sponsor for these events. They've been a great partner in helping us promote what we're doing here. And every time we meet, Cape and Plymouth Business owner Dale Shabigian gives us a digital marketing tip. So Dale, how are you? Welcome.
Great. How are you? Well, I already know how you are. Um, Things are good. It's sunny out, and thank you for having me. Really excited today, as always. And usually like to give a really constructive marketing tip, but I feel like this is important enough to talk about. A few weeks ago, we had a speaker about air quality. Right, that was a big event we had, and this time of year, I find it really hard when I'm working on a marketing task to feel creative, right? It's like cold and kind of rainy. So after that air quality, I went out and bought an air quality like kit thing. And I realized that in my office, my kids are homeschooling right now. So we're at my office at home. The CO2 is like through the roof. And all I did was crack the window, and so I had my house insulated by Cape Save. I had to come out and do everything. It's so airtight that I'm not getting enough fresh air in my home. And all I did is crack a window in every room. And I could tell you, everyone feels so much more energetic and we feel better. So my advice is, this was $100 on Amazon. It was well worth the investment. It like totally opened my eyes. And I feel like when I get into a creative task, I have more energy to do it. And I don't want this to be a cheesy tip, but this is an actual thing that's happened to me. I'm really grateful for. And that's my marketing tip for today.
Thank you, Dale. Actually, I think that's really cool. We did have two air quality events over the past few months, again, available on our YouTube channel. And there you go. You took some information out of that and you used it. And I think that's really important. And while you were talking, I went and cracked my window.
It's a real thing.
Real thing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, next up, I would like to introduce Robin Orbison, owner of Cape Space, board member of the Cape Cod Technology Council, and chair of our program committee. Robin does a kick-you-know-what job, bringing in some really wonderful speakers, and is going to be our moderator today. So, Robin, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Bert. And and thank you for that intro, but I cannot take credit for today. It was actually Bert who found our speaker for today, and I'm really excited to welcome Liz Argo. Liz is currently the owner of Liz Argo Consulting. She is a renewable energy expert and actually recently former executive director of the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Great to have you here. All right, so we're gonna have a little conversation here about electric cars, and we're gonna talk a little bit about electric cars in general. But you, in addition to being an expert in renewable energy and knowing a lot about electric cars, you actually drive one. So we're going to talk also about your personal experience with your electric car. But let's start out with just a little background. So if you wouldn't mind, tell our audience a little bit about how you came to be interested in renewable energy and came to make that, the focus of your career.
I got involved with the Cape Wind project. Many people will remember the proposal for our first wind farm. It would have been in Nantucket Sound, and it intrigued me greatly. So I was one of the co-founders of Clean Power Now. I see Spiro Mitrakastis is on the call or on the meeting. So he and I were part of that, starting it up. And that got me over to the possibilities in renewable energy. And I decided at the time I was running my video production company, and I went to Denmark a few times as part of our work to see the offshore wind farms and interview people over there, which only solidified my opinion that it was only a matter of time. If not Cape Wind, then it would be another, and here we are. So when I came back, I sort of put all my video cameras on a shelf and started a renewable energy career. And the way you start, like anything, is at the bottom. So I was climbing on roofs and measuring and going home and designing through my CAD program, solar installations. And that's how I got my start. Now, that was in 2006. And here we are many years later. My residential installations were transformed into the large installations at the airport, for instance, and on many of the Cap landfills. And so I'm hoping what we might look to soon in the future is a similar program that the Cape Vineyard Electric Cooperative had for the municipalities that we might introduce to commercial and industrial customers, where we bundle projects and go out and get installers for a bundled group of projects.
And your consulting practice, so this is you help those who are interested in converting to solar. So a municipality, for example, would contact you and say, hey, we're interested in going solar. How do we do this? And you help them through that process. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, being familiar with all the incentive programs, and now becoming very familiar with the battery options, because solar and battery are a no-brainer. They go together like peanut butter and jelly. So, but it's complex. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that I'm doing now. I'm doing a lot of that right now, for instance, for the airport.
And are your clients all commercial, or do you have residential clients as well?
Just commercial. Residential, I don't think you need the expertise that I offer. The installers that you can reach out to through Google. We have a wealth of very, very talented and experienced installation experts on Cape Cod. And I just say, just make sure you get 3 quotes.
Okay, excellent. All right. So let's talk a little bit about cars. Let's see, I drove a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago. I had a rented Prius. So this was a hybrid, right? Not 100% electric, but I do remember being a little wigged out by the fact that it didn't make any noise. Every time I brake, I thought the car broke down. But I think the technology's probably changed a little bit since then. So can you just talk a little bit about high level, how has the technology of electric cars progressed from, partial electric, fuel to, 100%. And the fact that we have now major car manufacturers saying they're all going to 100% electric, within the next, decade or two. Can you just speak to that a little?
I would love to, because I think it's fascinating. Many people will be familiar with a movie that was out called Who Killed the Electric Car? It was made in 1990, and there was General Motors was at the lead of electric vehicles back then. They had a slew of them, and literally at the bidding of our fossil fuel industry, they were pulled from owners' hands, locked up, and put away. So watch that movie. It gives you the beginning that was very clearly put down, put away. But eventually we got it back, thank goodness for climate change, but clearly climate change has had a big push. And it's really important for everybody to realize that while we're doing renewable energy and we're doing very well, especially in Massachusetts, our transportation sector is a huge contributor to fossil fuels and to greenhouse gases. 42% of our greenhouse gases is attributable to transportation. Now, that's not just cars, but passenger cars are the leader in that. And also airlines contributes greatly. And of course, our trucking. We are seeing our truckers, though, go for electric vehicles. It's proving to be the economic choice, the better economic choice. And one thing that was standing in the way of most adopters, if you will, anybody who wanted to go electric, was concerned about range. So we have a saying for that, range anxiety. And that was huge. And that's why we have the hybrids, where you have you have a gas engine to back it up. But now we have cars that if you don't have about 250-mile range with a full charge, then you're really kind of an older technology. So for instance, I went ahead and after having two Priuses, went ahead and invested in a Hyundai Kona. And I have, my range is 258 miles, and it is more than ample. I'm never have had any range anxiety. And I go in and out of Boston, and I go to Martha's Vineyard and travel the island and so on. And as you pointed out, many of the states are going to be going green. So Washington State is going to require all new cars be electric by 2030, for instance. General Motors' goal is to achieve zero emissions by 2035. Ford is doubling its investments in EV and charging infrastructure. And they're expecting this year 14 new models of electric trucks and electric vehicles. So it's here, it's happening. The uptick is very, very fast. And you asked me too where Massachusetts was. Massachusetts is about third in terms of saturation and going with electric vehicles. So Massachusetts is getting on the road, so to speak, with electric vehicles.
What percentage of cars on the road today do you think have some component of electric?
I don't have that figure. I actually
What's your gut?
reached out. My own thought. Well, the Prius has really gone whole hog. You can't really drive into a parking lot without seeing a Prius in the parking lot. So, maybe I could go out on a limb and say 1 out of 10 cars has an electric component, but that's not a number that I really know.
Okay, all right. I didn't mean to put you on the spot with statistics there. Okay, so Sagan, you have a Honda, is that correct?
Hyundai.
Hyundai.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the name of them? What's the model?
It's the Kona, and I actually can bring up a slide maybe, and it has some of the.
Yeah, you got a picture?
All right, let's see if I can do it.
Look at the Kona.
There we go. Yes. So this is the picture. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Great. Of the Hyundai Kona. It's a small SUV. As I pointed out, the range is 258 miles. And just to start getting into costs and so on, I paid 37, just over 37. And it's important to recognize that there's both a rebate and a tax credit. There's a federal tax credit of $7,500, and a state rebate from a program called More-EV of $2,500. Might note that there are some stipulations around getting both of them. And the federal tax credit is phasing out. So for instance, the Teslas and the Chevrolet Volt and the Chevrolet Bolt do not have as robust a federal tax credit. But that's how I was able to afford my Kona. Boy, it was a great year. I got money back when I put in my taxes after buying the Kona. And here's just a little picture of the interior. It's as modern as you would expect. It's got all of the lane, you know, don't cross into another lane, and the backup camera and so on. And it's ample space for me. I'm a paddleboarder, so I can fit my paddleboard in by sliding it in between the two seats.
And what,
So let
what
me
year
go
is
back.
this car?
Pardon?
What year is the car?
This is a 2019. It hasn't changed much, I should add. No.
Okay. And what other models did you look at when you were shopping?
Well, we had the car show last 2019 at the airport. Myself and
Beautiful.
Jim Wolf put together the first Cape car show, electric car show. So I got a chance to see the Tesla, the Bolt, the Volt, lots of Priuses, and the Hyundai. I'm trying to think what other cars, what other manufacturers were there. But the Kona in particularly grabbed me because I liked, yes, Bert Jackson and the Tech Council helped too. And we're hoping to partner with Tech Council and have this fall our second electric car show. So this, the car show is a great opportunity for me to try a lot of different cars. And I fell in love with the Hyundai Kona. So I have to admit, I had to go off Cape to buy it because I couldn't find as good an offer on Cape. So I'm hoping that the Cape Cod dealers kind of catch on and start to be more active. They weren't as knowledgeable as some of our off-Cape dealers. So.
And so what was it about the Kona that you loved as opposed to the others? Why did that one get to the top of your list?
It was basically the only small SUV that was there. And I wanted to move into the SUV world because it's a little taller and getting in and out is a little easier, and it can carry more. So that's why I went that route. Okay,
great. And were the prices comparable?
It was more to get an electric vehicle, but we're seeing now that the that what we call parity. We've waited and waited for solar power to be as on par or in parity with electricity costs, and they are they're coming down and becoming similar to regular car costs. And that's one reason so many of the car dealers are just going that route. Apparently Hyundai sells more electric vehicles than it does gas powered vehicles.
That's a great statistic right there. All right, so we're getting some questions here about charging. So let's have a little conversation about charging. So, so I know that there has been some concern that we don't have enough charging stations here on the Cape. And I know that you have already said that you can go 258 miles and you don't experience charging anxiety.
I certainly don't. And I have a little map here I can show you.
Oh, great. Yeah. Let's have a little map.
Let's see if we can share this one. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a slide from a company called PlugShare. There are similar, this is an app. There are similar apps all over. Different charging station manufacturers will feature theirs. ChargePoint is a very popular charging station manufacturer. They have their own version of this. This shows you the saturation of charging stations, public charging stations on the Cape and island and off Cape. So while there's work to be done there to bring more charging stations forward, I've never had an issue with charging. When I go into Boston, many of the parking lots have charging stations now, and you kind of get a premier spot because you're not fighting for a parking spot because they're reserved for electric cars. But I think it's really important to note that in the whole time, and I've had it since October 2019, The whole time that I've had my electric vehicle, I've only used an outside charging station twice. Once when I went to Boston and once when I was on Martha's Vineyard. So it's very important for people who are not touring or driving long distances to realize that you have a charging station in your home. And I have a slide that I think will be very important to show people that you do not have to have solar power on your roof in order to make charging affordable. It's less expensive than gas, and we've done the numbers, so I'll bring that slide up eventually. But the point is that if you, for me, I go home at night, and if I need to, I just plug it into the wall, and the cord came with the car, and the next thing I know, I'm charged up for the next day. So charging is no longer the challenge that it used to be.
So it might be that part of this slide is off my screen, but I think I'm unable to see a legend. What is the difference between the orange and the green on this?
Yes, no, the yellow are high power charging stations
And
as
what is-
opposed to level 3. Tesla, for instance, needs more a higher power charging station. And if you want, I can, let's see if we can go to, oh, no, your slides are not changing.
No, they're changing.
Okay, good.
We're now seeing the Kona.
Yeah, so here's a synopsis or a little legend of the different charging options. There's level 1, which is this cord right here down at the bottom. That comes with your car. And that's what I use. I plug it into my household outlet in my garage, and I charge my car at whenever it's sitting around. And sometimes I don't even bother. A level 2, it's a higher voltage supply. It's similar, it's 240 volt, like a clothes dryer would need. And that will charge you much more quickly. Now, level 3 is the fast one. And those are the ones that are harder to find. But as you can see, you can reach, in 30 minutes, you can reach 80% of your battery level. So if you go out and find one of these, you can just charge while you walk around for a half an hour. And just to get an idea of the charging time, my level 1, anybody's level 1, if I leave my car charging for 10 hours and I'm seeking to get 50 miles, it's going to take 10 hours to give me 50 miles. So the rate is about 4.76, almost 5 miles of charging per hour. And in the level 2, to get 250 miles, I charge for 10 hours. So using 10 hours as a basic overnight time that you might plug in for, I get my 50 miles, which I'm not doing more than 30 every day. And if you're traveling and you need more, then you might need the level 2 charger and get yourself 250 miles. So that rate is about 25 miles per hour.
And so if you wanted to upgrade in your home to a level 2, what would be involved in that?
So if you have a port, an outlet for a dryer in your garage, you're all set. But if you have to run a 240 outlet to your garage or to an outside plug, then you're looking at an electrician. And the prices vary, but I've seen it quoted as a few hundred to 1,000. So I put in the middle there. My quote to me was about 500 to run the power. And I decided I don't need it. I've got the cable and I don't go anywhere particularly.
And you use a different cable if you're on level 2?
No, I believe it's the same cable. It's a different port on the cable.
And back to the map. So the green flags are level 1.
No, those are level 2s.
Oh, those are level 2s. And
Yeah.
the yellows are
3.
Are 3. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So this this is making me, this is a great visual for me, because I do have this sort of thing in my head that there's no charging stations around. I'm going to get out there and have this charging anxiety. But this looks like there really is a pretty good amount of these scattered throughout our region.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to ask you about trucks for a minute, just because you mentioned that there's some truckers that are going to going to electric. And you know, I'm really dating myself here, but I just have these memories of like Ross Perot saying, "You're never going to get a diesel engine to run electric." So, are you able to talk a little bit about how large trucks have been able to make a change to electric?
I really am not going to be the expert on the trucking industries going to that side. From my work with the Cape Vineyard Electric Cooperative, I certainly know that the programs, for instance, that are being offered by the state for the municipalities, there are quite a few programs to help the trucking fleet go electric, and the technology is there. So, I mean, I don't know any more than probably everybody knows from the commercials on TV. You see Amazon and so many of our shipping where we rely on deliveries from different shippers and ordering online, they're all going electric. And I think maybe if I can take a liberty and go back to a slide and point out one reason is the cost of repairs. Would I go back to my screen and bring that slide up? If we can find it. I know which one it is. It's this one. So it's the scatter plot. Can you see the scatter plot?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
Oh, okay, good. Good point. There we go. So this is a diagram that shows the, it's called a carbon counter. It's out of MIT. It shows the greenhouse gas emissions on the y-axis, and on the x-axis it shows the costs of maintenance, vehicle fuel and maintenance costs. And the yellow dots are electric vehicles. The orange and red dots are hybrids. And then the black dots are your internal combustion engine vehicles. So you can see that the costs for the 5 or so dots that are printed out here, those are specifically the Mirage vehicle, a couple of the Mirage vehicles, and let me see if I can find that, the exact. Yes, the Mitsubishi Mirages and the Chevrolet Spark are these first 6 dots, and the Kia Rio. And then when we get into these yellow dots down here, we move into the Mini Cooper, an electric vehicle, the Nissan Leaf, the Hyundai Ioniq, which is the sedan version of the Kona, and the Toyota Prius. So that gives you an idea of the costs of maintenance are on a par with internal combustion engines, if not less. My Kona, for instance, is right here. And I have to verify that, well, first of all, I'm not paying for any gas because and I'll show you, even if you have no solar power, you're going to pay less for gas. But I have solar power, so I pay nothing for gas. And I've had my first maintenance visit, and after a year and 5 months, and it was $30 because there's no oil to change. All they did was rotate my tires and check to make sure that all of the fluids were at a good level. So, and basically put the computer onto the computer outlets to make sure everything was working as it should. And so, your brakes are going to need maintenance, your tires, but there's no engine. So there's very little repair costs. And that is what seems to be pushing the trucking industry into electric vehicles. Certainly it's a huge contributor, that plus the fact that we're on parity now with costs of gasoline.
What do you know about the longevity of these cars? We're some of us have. Everyone's had that experience of driving a car into the ground. You've got your 20-year-old Chevy that you don't want to let go of. But in terms of the real average life expectancy of a traditional conventional car versus an electric car, do you know the difference?
I don't, but I can vouch for the warranty that I have. For instance, I have a 10-year warranty, which I've never kept a car. For me, I'm not a drive it into the ground person. So I have the 10-year warranty, which gives me the comfort I need for that I'm not going to have a dead car on my hands.
Seeing a question here from the audience. Somebody has been coming to understand that the electric vehicles are more expensive to insure. Is that correct?
I didn't experience that. My insurance ran the same. It's more because it's a more expensive car, but it hasn't got anything to do with batteries.
And that's a good segue. So let's talk about the battery. So I understand the battery does need to be replaced from time to time. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
The battery, how often do you need to replace the battery?
Well, it's going to be under the auto company's hands, in the auto company's hands. If the battery needs replacing before the 10 years, then they will have to replace it.
Okay, but how long is the battery expected to last?
The 10 years, I don't imagine that they're going into
the life of the car.
Right.
Okay, that's great. Okay, can you talk a little bit about the performance of the car? So, can you
It is.
run a drag race in this
It's
car?
a rabbit. It's so fast. It's unbelievable how, and you hear this all the time, that the electric cars, it's from 0 to 60 on just by touching the accelerator, and it takes off very, very fast, and highway driving is a snap. It's also a solid car. It's because the battery is heavy. So it's my husband was in it the other day and he's like, boy, this is a really nice ride. I said, well, yeah, because it's got a nice heavy battery anchoring it down to the road. So that part I adore. Other than that, and I have 3 modes I can drive in: sport, eco, and I think normal. And I leave it in eco for ecology. I leave it in eco because there's a lot of charging the battery from braking. And that actually gives it the braking system is actually more activated when I'm in the eco system. So as soon as I take my foot off the accelerator, it starts charging the battery from the braking system.
So what are the other 2 modes that you have?
Sport, so you can really race around and take everybody, catch up to everybody, and then normal.
Okay, so what, it goes faster when you're in sport?
Yeah, you don't have as much drag. There is a certain amount. So when I'm in eco mode, there's some drag, yeah, which is charging the battery. And I don't have to put my brakes on when I'm coming up behind somebody. The car automatically starts to slow down.
Okay, and so did you? How was your experience getting used to the fact that the car is quiet? So
well, it's quiet, but
with the sounds of our cars. When the sounds go away, what happens?
Well, it's lovely. It's just great. And all electric and hybrid cars have a very quiet sound that they make when they're on, and they're up to a certain miles per hour, just so that people are aware that there's a car on and could be moving, because it is for safety. If you're in a parking lot and you turn your car on, it doesn't make any noise, but it does because it hums. So for instance, the Hyundai Kona just kind of goes, and it's also when you're backing up, that way people know that there's a car moving. So there's a little noise that they've added to bring onto the electric cars.
Okay, so if you're getting into a regular old gas car and you start the engine and you hear, it turns over, right? You can hear the engine turn over and then, right? So if you're starting up an electric car, it doesn't make any sound. So how do you know if it's working?
Well, again, because it does make a noise. It starts humming.
It does. Okay,
Yeah.
the hum is audible.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, that's great. All right, we're going to start inviting some questions from the audience here. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I'm going to ask you, one question that has is probably from the early days of electric cars. But I remember reading about one of the concerns with electric cars was that when people were getting into accidents in an electric car, that there was some risk of either the people in the car or the fire and rescue people coming to get you out of the car, that there was some risk of electrocution because the battery would have been damaged and there might be some live wires somewhere. Has that technology completely, is that no longer an issue?
Not an issue that I've ever heard of. I would give a plug now to a group called Green Energy Consumers Alliance in Rhode Island for some of these questions. It's not something I've read. It's not something certainly that was brought forward for all the many Prius that I've driven for so many years, was never an issue or a concern. Certainly fire departments are now and police departments are now going with hybrids and electric cars. So if there's a concern, it's a concern that they've learned to handle. And like any solar, it's only live when there's a place for the power to go. So for instance, in many of our solar installations on people's roofs, the inverter itself is such that it shuts down power. As soon as it gets a signal that the power is not steady, there's no power export. So similar to that, the electric cars would have a shutdown mode. The battery would still have power, but it's not being sent anywhere.
Okay. All right. So I am just going through the chat now to see if we have any unanswered questions.
I think one that I should answer, because I think I thought would be the gas versus electric cost. I think that's important for people to understand, because if somebody doesn't have a solar installation, they might think that they can't afford an electric car. So I did put together a chart to show that electric cars are competitive. Let's see, let's do this one. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is without any solar being at the home. The gas, I've put 265, and I think we'll be lucky now if we can find gas for 265 a gallon as of this week. Electric is 20 cents per kilowatt hour. Could be more, could be less, but that's a good ballpark. The mileage, pretty much going to look at 50 miles. 30 miles per gallon is typical mileage for a car. I know some people have better, some people don't, but let's use 30 miles per gallon. Meanwhile, an electric car, the Kona, gets 50 miles from a 16 kilowatt hour charge. So I'm going to extrapolate the 30 miles of gas to make it 50 miles of gasoline, and that's a factor of 1.67. So the cost for 50 miles of gas is $4.43. And in the case of the electric, it's the 20 cents times the 16 kilowatt hours, or $3.20 for to go that distance with electricity providing the power. So, and of course, in my case, it's $0 because I have solar, which I paid for, and we can go over those numbers too. But so even if you don't have a solar installation, at this point, the electric charge is going to be, to get the same miles, is going to be less expensive for you than gasoline.
Okay.
I think that was probably on a lot of people's question list.
Yes. All right. Here's a few more. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but what voltage do the cars operate at internally?
I do know that. Let's see if I wrote that down. Nope, I don't have that at my fingertips. I think that's a Google. That could be found out pretty easily by just Googling.
Okay. And here's a question that I think we may have covered in the discussion about longevity, but we're getting a question about depreciation on electric cars versus conventional cars.
And again, I don't know that I have that we have the experience that we need, because again, it's relatively new. But certainly any car that you drive off the lot is depreciated vastly. I know that supply and demand is going to speak to that. And I can also point out that there is an organization that is specializing in secondhand cars, secondhand electric cars. And that group, I'll put up the slide, that group would be certainly would be terrific to go to. They're as I mentioned, if you really want to dig in deeper in terms of some of these more technical questions, Green Energy Consumers Alliance is terrific. And they have secondhand cars that they are offering, and they also have discounts. So that before you purchase electric, definitely check out Green Energy Consumers Alliance. Their email or their website is greenenergyconsumers.org, because they'll have a lot more answers to you and can get you signed up or in line with dealers who are offering discounts. And they have the second-hand program as well. So if you need to go with a second-hand electric car, we're now seeing them.
Okay. All right. So there has been a lot of chatter going on in the chat. There's a lot of comments and a lot of people sort of sharing information. So I've been trying to pull out the ones that are questions for Liz. And if I missed anybody, if you wouldn't mind just putting it back into the chat so I can make sure we don't miss you. But in the meantime, Liz, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to share about electric cars?
Well, you asked me what was the what in my question list you had asked me, and I think it's hysterical. What was my what needs to be improved? And I have to tell a funny story. When I first got the car, I had a presentation in Provincetown, and it was October, but we had a freak snowstorm. And I drove up and I had to drive back to Yarmouth from Provincetown in the snowstorm. And the next day I had to be in Boston. And I got home, got into the garage, and I could not open the charging port. It was frozen solid with ice. And the charging port is on the front of the car. And so I think if they need to do anything, they need to change where they have the charging port, so it's not running into the ice and snow and wind. Other than that,
how did you fix that? What, did you get a hair dryer?
I waited a two seconds, calmed down and waited. So other than that, no, I have just adored it. It's smooth running, it's fast. Of course, never having to go stop in a gas station ever again is not a problem for me. I don't need to stop at a gas station, especially in the cold. So there isn't a single complaint that I have. I love my electric car. I see Bert, it just talked about heat and AC. Yeah, if you use your heat and you use your AC, you do cut down on your electric range, but there's seat heaters. There is no way to cool yourself with the seat, but you use your seat heater instead of the heat, and that doesn't cut down on your range nearly as much. So there is that adjustment, or if you're not driving very far, it's just not an issue. So for me, as long as I'm on the Cape, I just don't have any, I can use as much power as I need whenever I need it, because it gets recharged at night.
It's a related question here about whether the cars can go shorter distances when the weather is cold. Does the cold weather impact how long your charge holds?
Yeah, so that's what I was just talking about. Yes, it's going to, you'll see that you have a readout that gives you exactly how many miles you have on your charge. And if you turn on the heat, you'll see it go from 200 to 190, for instance. So for most of us, it's like, oh yeah, turn on my the seat heater, and turn off the heat.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I think that we have covered all the questions in the chat. Liz, This has been very enlightening. I think all of us want to run out right now to the dealership and start looking at our new electric cars. Um, I will give you the last word if you have anything you'd like to add before we send it back to Bert.
Well, I would encourage people to, at the Super Bowl featured let me get rid of okay, we're not screen sharing anymore. The Super Bowl featured Will Ferrell challenging Norway in the electric car saturation game. I would encourage everybody to watch the Will Ferrell commercial because it's pretty hysterical and makes the point that America should be catching up in so many ways with our greening of Europe. So catch that commercial and also watch the Who Killed the Electric Car. Again, it's just amazing that we have these technologies at our fingertips, but we stifle them because of the strength of some of our business lobbies. So I guess that would be my final word is let's be independent and think for ourselves and do the right things.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much, Liz. All right, Bert, back to you.
Liz, thank you so much. That was just really fascinating. I can't wait to go out and buy an electric car, and I love the Hyundai Kona just for the name because I love Kona. Robin, thank you for another wonderful day of moderation, some great questions, and thanks to everybody in the chat. I mean, there was a lot of wonderful questions, and I love the fact that there was some conversation going back and forth, that we had some subject matter experts in the room that weren't just Liz. So
Yeah, I could tell that was a lot of my stuff was being filled in. Thank you.
yes, great to have that. So thank you very much, everybody. Be sure and stay tuned for our events coming up in the following Fridays. And aside from that, I wish you a happy Friday. It's a beautiful sunny day right now here on Cape Cod, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. So take care.
Thanks, everyone.